I am Melinda, 31 years old, and I still remember how my heart sank watching Miranda unwrap her Rolex at her extravagant rooftop party. Meanwhile, my own birthday celebration consisted of a stale leftover cupcake and a card reading. Congrats on wasting another year. When I failed to laugh, my mother Judith snapped, "Relax, it is just a joke unless you are still sensitive." I quietly took a photo of the pathetic scene and walked out. Hours later, my cousin Brittany called frantically. "What did you do?" If you have ever felt like the forgotten child in your family, drop a comment below and hit subscribe. Let me know if you have ever had to stand up for yourself like I did that night. Growing up in suburban Chicago, I always knew my role in our family dynamic. As the firstborn daughter, I was the responsible, quiet one who helped with chores, earned straight A's, and rarely caused trouble. My sister Miranda, however, 3 years my junior, was the vivacious, charming one who could light up a room with her smile and wrap our parents around her finger with a single look. Our childhood home, a spacious colonial with meticulously maintained gardens, felt like a shrine to Miranda. The living room walls displayed dozens of framed photographs documenting her dance recitals, art projects, and winning smile. My academic certificates and honor roll mentions were tucked away in a drawer or displayed in the hallway leading to the basement. This pattern established itself so early that I barely questioned it until much later in life. I still vividly recall Miranda's 10th birthday. Our parents transformed the backyard into a carnival complete with pony rides, a cotton candy machine, and a professional face painter. All 30 of her friends received personalized gift bags, and Miranda wore a custom dress our mother had commissioned from a local designer. The entire extended family attended, bearing gifts wrapped in shimmering paper. For my 10th birthday, just 3 years earlier, we had a quiet dinner at home with my grandparents. I received a practical set of books and a new backpack for school. "Miranda has a more active social life," my mother explained when I finally gathered the courage to ask about the disparity. "She needs more encouragement to thrive." "You are already so self-sufficient, sweetie." This explanation became the standard response whenever I questioned the uneven treatment. Miranda needed the expensive summer camp because she struggled with making friends. She deserved the new computer because her artistic talents required the right tools. My academic achievements were expected, not exceptional, according to my parents. "You are just naturally gifted at school," my father Raymond would say, dismissing my hours of studying and dedication. "Miranda has to work twice as hard for half the results." School events followed the same pattern. When I won the regional science competition in 8th grade, my parents attended the ceremony but left immediately after to take Miranda to her dance lesson. The certificate eventually found its way to the refrigerator for a week before disappearing into that same drawer. When Miranda had her artwork selected for a local exhibition that same year, our parents invited the entire family, took dozens of photographs, and framed the program alongside her painting in the most visible spot in our living room. Family vacations revolved around Miranda's interests as well. If she expressed the slightest interest in marine biology, we spent our summer at the beach. When she developed a fascination with theater, our spring break featured Broadway shows. My preference for museums and historical sites was rarely considered in the planning process. "You are adaptable," my mother would say. "You can find something to enjoy anywhere." Attempts to voice my feelings typically ended with being labeled too sensitive or told I was imagining things. The most painful response was when they would completely rewrite history. "That is not what happened at all. We have always treated you girls equally." This constant gaslighting made me doubt my own memories and perceptions. My cousin Brittany was one of the few family members who openly acknowledged the differential treatment. Just 2 years older than me, she often stayed with us during summer breaks, while her parents traveled for work. "It is crazy how they fawn over Miranda and take you for granted," Brittany told me once, after witnessing a particularly flagrant incident where my parents canceled plans with me to attend Miranda's impromptu dance showcase. "Do they even realize what they are doing?" I simply shrugged, having developed a protective emotional shell. I am used to it. To cope with the constant feeling of being second best, I threw myself into academics and independence. If I could not win my parents' attention and approval, I would at least ensure my future success through scholarships and career opportunities. By high school, I had crafted a life largely separate from my family. I joined clubs, volunteered at the local library, and developed close friendships with people who valued me for who I was. Natalie became my closest ally during sophomore year of high school. After witnessing one of Miranda's birthday extravaganzas, contrasted with the token acknowledgement of my own birthday the month before, she was appalled. "This is not normal, Melinda," she insisted. "You know that, right? Parents are not supposed to have such obvious favorites." Having Natalie validate my experience was revolutionary. For years, I had internalized the narrative that I was being oversensitive or imagining the disparities. Having someone else witness and name the behavior helped me trust my own perceptions again. Just last month, I achieved a significant professional milestone, earning a promotion to senior marketing director at my firm after 5 years of dedicated work. When I shared the news during Sunday dinner, my mother nodded and immediately pivoted the conversation to Miranda's latest dating drama. My father mumbled a distracted "good job" without looking up from his phone. No champagne toast, no celebratory dinner, no acknowledgement beyond the most perfunctory response. Had it been Miranda's achievement, I knew the reaction would have been dramatically different. The pattern continued into adulthood, hardening from childhood habits into permanent family dynamics. I became the self-sufficient one who needed nothing, while Miranda remained the treasured one who deserved everything. What began as subtle favoritism had calcified into a family identity I could neither escape nor change. The WhatsApp notification sound had become a source of anxiety over the past 2 weeks. Each ping represented another message in the family group chat, obsessing over Miranda's upcoming 28th birthday celebration. My mother had created a dedicated thread, titled Operation Perfect Birthday, where she coordinated with family members about every minute detail. "The florist needs to know by tomorrow if we want peonies or garden roses for the centerpieces," my mother typed one evening. "Miranda loves both, but I think the peonies will complement the sunset lighting better at the rooftop venue." Within minutes, my Aunt Clara had chimed in with her opinion, followed by my grandmother and 2 cousins. The level of involvement for a birthday party felt more appropriate for a wedding. I watched the exchange with a familiar hollowness in my chest. "What color tablecloths did you decide on?" my father added to the conversation. "I will make sure the invoice reflects any changes." Money appeared to be no object. Later that week, I overheard my father discussing the Rolex watch with my uncle Philip during their weekly golf game. "It is a significant investment," my father said without a hint of hesitation. "But Miranda deserves something special. The rose gold will match everything she wears." The price tag he mentioned casually would have covered 3 months of my rent. I tried to ignore the sharp pain that accompanied the realization that my parents had never considered such a lavish gift for me. When I attempted to contribute ideas to the birthday planning, my suggestions were politely acknowledged, then swiftly overlooked. "What about that Italian place on Michigan Avenue?" I offered when the discussion turned to dinner options. "Miranda mentioned liking it after we had lunch there last month." "Oh, sweetie," my mother responded. "We need something more exclusive. I have already put down deposits at the Skyline Lounge. The views are spectacular, and they are bringing in a special chef for the evening." My own birthday the previous month had been markedly different. No group chat, no weeks of planning, not even a calendar reminder, until my father received a Facebook notification the day before. My mother had called that evening with an apologetic tone that had become all too familiar. "We have just been so busy with work and planning that charity auction," she explained. "We can grab dinner tomorrow if you are free." No mention of the fact that they had known my birth date for 31 years. No acknowledgement that the charity auction she referenced was still 3 weeks away. Just another example of me being an afterthought in the family consciousness. Despite the hurt, I found myself helping with Miranda's party preparations. One Saturday, my mother invited me to join her shopping for decorations and gifts. I agreed, hoping this might be an opportunity for some mother-daughter bonding time. We spent 4 hours selecting the perfect accessories to complement the event theme. My mother deliberated between 2 nearly identical crystal picture frames before purchasing both. Miranda can decide which she prefers, she explained. For my birthday, she had regifted a scarf, still in its original packaging from 2 Christmases ago. While my mother examined luxury candles, I excused myself to use the restroom. Passing by the store's private shopping area, I overheard my father's voice on a phone call. "Yes, we have increased the budget again," he was saying to someone. "Miranda's boyfriend might propose soon, so this birthday needs to be especially memorable." The casual revelation that my parents were spending even more on an already extravagant party, while they had forgotten my birthday, entirely sent a wave of nausea through me. I leaned against the wall, fighting back tears that threatened to expose my vulnerability. That evening, I called Natalie, who had remained my closest confidant since high school. "They have lost their minds," I told her, describing the elaborate plans and seemingly unlimited budget. "The photographer they hired usually does celebrity events. And now they have increased the budget again, because Miranda might get engaged soon." "This has gone beyond favoritism, Melinda," Natalie responded, her voice tight with protective anger. "Have you ever directly confronted them about how differently they treat you?" I sighed, picking at a loose thread on my couch cushion. "Every time I try, they either deny it or tell me I am being too sensitive. It is like they genuinely cannot see it. Maybe it is time to stop quietly accepting it," Natalie suggested gently. "You have spent your entire life accommodating their behavior and making excuses for them." The thought of confrontation sent anxiety spiraling through my chest. My entire identity had been built around being the easy, low-maintenance daughter who never caused problems. Speaking up directly contradicted everything I had trained myself to be. "I would not even know where to begin," I admitted. "Start by acknowledging your own feelings," Natalie advised. "You deserve to be celebrated just as much as Miranda does." As Miranda's birthday approached, the knot of resentment in my stomach grew tighter. Each new detail of the extravaganza highlighted the stark contrast with my own neglected celebration. The professional makeup artist, the custom cocktail menu, the live music, the handwritten invitations sent to 50 guests. I found myself lying awake at night, replaying memories from childhood through adulthood, seeing the pattern of favoritism with painful clarity. The anxiety of potentially confronting my family warred with the growing certainty that something needed to change. I could continue being the forgotten daughter, or I could finally demand the recognition and respect I deserved. The question remained, did I have the courage to disrupt the family dynamic we had all been performing for decades? The evening of Miranda's birthday party arrived with perfect weather, as if even the elements conspired to create her ideal celebration. The Skyline Lounge occupied the top floor of one of Chicago's most prestigious buildings, offering 360-degree views of the glittering cityscape. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Lake Michigan to the east and the urban panorama in every other direction. The space had been transformed with thousands of twinkling lights, creating the impression of a starlit garden 28 stories above the bustling streets. I arrived 90 minutes early, at my mother's insistence to help with final preparations. While professional event staff handled most details, my mother assigned me to arranging the gift table and placing the personalized name cards at each setting. The irony of being tasked with organizing the celebration of my perpetually favored sister was not lost on me. "Make sure Miranda's presents are displayed prominently," my mother instructed, barely glancing at me as she consulted with the florist about last-minute adjustments to the arrangements. "The smaller packages should be in front, so everything is visible." I nodded and silently arranged the mountain of elaborately wrapped gifts. The sheer volume was staggering for an adult's birthday. My own celebration had yielded a gift card to a bookstore and the aforementioned regifted scarf. The event photographer arrived while I was still organizing the display. Marcus Wilson, with his carefully curated casual appearance and expensive camera equipment, surveyed the space with a professional eye. "You must be with the venue," he said, approaching me. Can you direct me to the client? I want to confirm the shot list before guests arrive. The automatic assumption that I was staff rather than family stung, though I could hardly blame him. I was dressed in a simple black dress rather than the cocktail attire specified on the invitations, having decided that blending into the background would be easier than drawing attention. Actually, I am the sister of the birthday girl, I corrected him with a practiced smile. My mother is over by the bar area. His expression flickered with embarrassment. I am so sorry about that. I just thought, well, you were working so diligently with the setup. No offense taken, I assured him, though the interaction reinforced my peripheral status in the celebration. By 7:30, guests began to arrive. Extended family, Miranda's friends, colleagues, and even some of my parents' business associates filtered in, all bearing additional gifts and effusive birthday wishes. I stationed myself near the entrance, accepting coats and directing people toward the bar, falling into the support role I had played my entire life. At exactly 8 o'clock, my father's text announced they were arriving with Miranda. The guests gathered near the elevator, champagne glasses in hand. When the doors slid open to reveal my sister, a collective surprise erupted from the crowd. Miranda's reaction was everything my parents had hoped for. Her perfectly manicured hands flew to her face, her eyes widened dramatically, and she let out a delighted squeal that somehow managed to be both genuine and performative. She looked stunning in a designer dress that complemented her slender figure, her hair and makeup flawless after hours with professionals. "Oh my God," she gasped, tears already forming in her eyes. "I cannot believe you did this." My father beamed with pride. "Only the best for our baby girl." My mother guided Miranda through the crowd, both of them accepting compliments and congratulations as if at a royal reception. I hovered at the edges, sipping champagne and watching the spectacle with a strange detachment. Dinner was served at 9, a 7-course tasting menu created specifically for the occasion. Each plate arrived as a work of art, accompanied by explanations from the chef himself. The wine pairings had been selected by a sommelier, who introduced each selection with elaborate descriptions of tasting notes and vineyard histories. Throughout the meal, various family members offered toasts to Miranda. My father's speech was particularly emotional, describing her as the light of our lives and our greatest blessing. My mother recounted Miranda's achievements with glowing pride, from her first dance recital to her recent promotion at the boutique marketing firm where she had worked for just under 2 years. The fact that my own more significant promotion had barely registered with them just weeks earlier created a bitter contrast I struggled to swallow along with the exquisite food. As dessert was served, my mother signaled for the presentation of gifts. Miranda was guided to a velvet-upholstered chair positioned for maximum visibility, surrounded by the mountain of presents I had arranged earlier. She opened each one with theatrical excitement, holding up designer items, luxury beauty products, and artisanal home goods for the approving crowd. The pinnacle came when my father presented a distinctive small box, wrapped in signature green paper. "This one is special, sweetheart," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "From your mother and me." Miranda unwrapped the package with careful fingers, gasping appropriately when she opened the box to reveal the rose gold Rolex gleaming against black velvet. She immediately slipped it onto her wrist, standing to embrace our parents in a tearful hug. "It is absolutely perfect," she whispered, though the microphone caught her words and broadcast them to the entire room. "I love you both so much." The photographer captured the moment from multiple angles, ensuring the emotional exchange would be perfectly preserved and inevitably displayed prominently in our parents' home. My own gift to Miranda, a first edition of her favorite childhood book that I had spent months tracking down, was opened quickly and acknowledged with a distracted thanks before she moved on to the next package. After the gifts, Miranda stood to address her guests. She thanked everyone profusely for coming, expressed gratitude to our parents for their generosity, and acknowledged the venue staff for their service. My name was mentioned in passing at the very end of her speech, grouped with everyone else who helped make tonight special. As the evening progressed into dancing and more drinking, my Aunt Clara cornered me near the dessert table. "You look tired, Melinda," she observed with thinly veiled criticism. "And that dress is rather plain for such a special occasion, do you not think?" Before I could respond, she continued, "Your sister looks absolutely radiant, always the social butterfly. You could learn something from her about making an effort, you know." I forced a smile. "Miranda always knows how to shine." "Such a shame you did not inherit that quality," Clara replied with a pat on my arm that felt more condescending than comforting. "But we all have different strengths, I suppose." As she wandered away, I felt a gentle touch on my elbow. Brittany had appeared beside me, offering a fresh glass of champagne and a sympathetic look. "Aunt Clara is being particularly awful tonight," she observed. "How are you holding up with all this?" I shrugged, accepting the champagne gratefully. "Oh, you know, same as always." Brittany's expression grew serious. "This whole thing is excessive even by your parents' standards. The difference in how they celebrate you two is getting ridiculous." "I am used to it," I replied automatically. The phrase, "a well-worn shield." "Well, you should not have to be," Brittany insisted, her eyes surveying the opulent scene. "Nobody should get used to being treated as an afterthought by their own family." As midnight approached, my emotional reserves had depleted entirely. I watched Miranda holding court in the center of the room, my parents hovering nearby to ensure her every need was met, the photographer documenting each moment. The weight of invisibility pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. I slipped out onto the terrace, letting the cool night air wash over my face. The Chicago skyline sparkled around me, beautiful and indifferent to the turmoil inside my chest. For 31 years, I had accepted my role as the forgotten daughter, the responsible one who needed nothing and expected less. But something had shifted inside me. The contrast between Miranda's extravaganza and my own pathetic celebration had crystallized decades of inequity into something I could no longer ignore. Standing alone under the vast night sky, I made a decision. The next time my birthday was dismissed, I would not smile and pretend it did not hurt. I would no longer participate in maintaining the family fiction that we were all treated equally. Something had to change, even if I did not yet know exactly how to make that happen. 1 week after Miranda's extravaganza, my mother called with what she clearly considered a generous offer. "We were thinking we should properly celebrate your birthday, since we were so busy last month," she said, her tone suggesting I should be grateful for this belated acknowledgement. "How about dinner tomorrow night?" "Just family." Despite my recent resolution, hope flickered in my chest. Perhaps Miranda's party had made them realize the disparity in their treatment of us. Maybe this was the beginning of change. "That sounds nice," I replied carefully. "Where were you thinking?" "Oh, nothing fancy. That Italian place you mentioned before should be fine." The restaurant she referenced was not the upscale Michigan Avenue establishment I had suggested for Miranda, but a casual chain restaurant near my parents' suburban home. Still, I tempered my disappointment. "It was something. I will make a reservation," I offered, already understanding that if I did not take charge, the dinner might never materialize. "Perfect. 7:30 works for us." The following evening, I arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early to secure a table. The hostess led me to a corner booth far from the windows, clearly one of the least desirable spots in the already modest establishment. I requested a different table, but the restaurant was largely booked for a corporate event. By 7:45, my parents had arrived with Miranda in tow. My father immediately complained about the location of the table while checking his phone. Miranda looked bored before even sitting down, scrolling through Instagram where she was still posting highlights from her rooftop celebration. "Your Uncle Philip might join us later," my mother informed me. He had another commitment but said he would try to stop by for dessert. The contrast between the advance planning for Miranda's party and the haphazard, last-minute nature of my celebration was stark. No invitations had been sent. No group chat had coordinated details. I had not even been consulted about the date or time. We ordered drinks and appetizers, with my father continuing to check email throughout. Miranda dominated the conversation with stories from her party, showing my parents' comments on her social media posts about the event. Everyone said it was the best party they had ever been to, she gushed. Alexis wants to use the same photographer for her wedding next spring. My mother beamed with pride. Marcus did capture everything beautifully. We have already ordered an album of the best shots. I sipped my water silently, wondering if I had made a mistake in agreeing to this dinner. Rather than feeling celebrated, I felt more invisible than ever, forced to participate in yet another conversation about Miranda's special day. When our entrees arrived, I tried steering the conversation toward my recent work projects. We just landed the Henderson account last week. It is the biggest client our firm has taken on this year. My mother nodded distractedly. That is nice, dear. My father took a business call between bites of his pasta, stepping away from the table entirely after a few minutes. Miranda continued scrolling through her phone, occasionally turning the screen toward our mother to show her something amusing. By the time dessert rolled around, Uncle Philip had texted to say he could not make it after all. My mother signaled a waiter. Do you have anything for a birthday? Something small, she added quickly. The waiter returned with a single cupcake that had clearly been sitting in the display case all day. The frosting had partially collapsed, and the single candle listed to one side. He placed it in front of me with a perfunctory, "Happy birthday," before rushing off to another table. Make a wish, Miranda said without looking up from her phone. I blew out the sad candle, wishing only that the evening would end soon. My mother reached into her purse and extracted a card in a wrinkled envelope. This is from all of us, she said, pushing it across the table. Inside the card, emblazoned with cartoonish graphics, were the words, "Congrats on wasting another year." The printed joke was followed by my mother's hasty signature. No personal message, no gift card. Nothing else. I stared at the card, the culmination of a lifetime of being an afterthought washing over me. When I did not laugh or thank them for the thoughtless gesture, my mother's expression hardened. Relax, Melinda. It is just a joke unless you are still sensitive about your age. In that moment, something inside me finally broke. 3 decades of suppressed hurt crystallized into a single, clarifying instant of rage and sadness. Without a word, I took out my phone and snapped a photo of the scene. The sad cupcake, the joke card, my family's disinterested expressions, the corner table in the chain restaurant. What are you doing? My mother asked, frowning. I stood up, gathering my purse. I have to go. But you have not eaten your cupcake, my mother protested, as if that stale pastry somehow represented genuine celebration. Miranda can have it, I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. You all clearly would rather be somewhere else anyway. My father had returned from his call just in time to witness my departure. What is wrong with her now? I heard him ask as I walked away. Outside in the parking lot, tears blurred my vision as I fumbled for my car keys. The enormity of what had just happened, of what had been happening my entire life, threatened to overwhelm me. I called Natalie while sitting in my car. Can I come over? I asked, my voice breaking. Of course, she answered immediately. What happened? Everything. Nothing. The same thing that always happens. I started the engine. I will tell you when I get there. 20 minutes later, I sat on Natalie's couch, recounting the pitiful birthday dinner and showing her the photo I had taken. This is beyond neglect, Melinda, Natalie said, her expression a mixture of anger and compassion. This is emotional abuse. They spent thousands on Miranda's party and could not even be bothered to get you a real cake or a thoughtful card. I have spent my entire life making excuses for them, I admitted, the realization both painful and liberating, telling myself I was imagining things or being too sensitive. Natalie placed her hand over mine. You are not imagining anything. The way they treat you is wrong, and you deserve better. Something shifted inside me as I looked at the photo again. The visual evidence of the disparity was undeniable, impossible to gaslight away. For the first time, I allowed myself to fully acknowledge the anger I had suppressed for decades. I am tired of pretending it does not hurt, I whispered. Then stop pretending, Natalie suggested gently. You have spent your whole life accommodating their behavior. Maybe it is time they faced the consequences of how they have treated you. I stared at the photo, a visual distillation of years of neglect and favoritism. What would that even look like? That is for you to decide, Natalie answered. But whatever you choose, I am here for you. As we talked into the night, the seed of an idea took root. The photo in my phone represented a truth my family had always denied. Perhaps it was time to make that truth impossible to ignore. Settled on Natalie's couch with a mug of tea and a borrowed pair of sweatpants, I opened Instagram. My finger hovered over the photo I had taken at the restaurant. The sad cupcake with its tilted candle. The crude joke card. The empty chair where my father had been sitting during his business call. Miranda's disinterested profile as she looked at her phone. "Are you sure about this?" Natalie asked, watching me with concern. I nodded slowly. For 31 years, I have protected them from the consequences of their behavior. I have never called them out, never embarrassed them, never demanded better treatment. "And what has that gotten you?" she asked softly. "A lifetime of being invisible," I replied, the truth of it settling heavily in my chest. With a deep breath, I began composing a caption. I wrote honestly about the stark contrast between the two celebrations. I described the rooftop venue, the professional photographer, and the Rolex given to Miranda versus the chain restaurant, sad cupcake, and insulting card given to me. I included specific examples of the pattern of favoritism throughout our lives, from childhood birthday parties to achievements acknowledged versus ignored. I was careful to keep my tone factual, rather than accusatory. These were not allegations, but documented realities. To drive the point home, I included a second photo, a shot from Miranda's party showing the elaborate cake, the skyline view, and my beaming parents presenting the Rolex. "This feels both terrifying and necessary," I told Natalie, as my finger hovered over the share button. "Sometimes the truth needs to be spoken," she replied. "Especially when people have refused to hear it for so long." I pressed share, then immediately put my phone face down on the coffee table. A wave of anxiety crashed over me, followed by an unexpected sense of relief. For the first time in my life, I had refused to participate in the family fiction that we were all treated equally. Natalie and I stayed up watching mindless reality television, a welcome distraction from the bomb I had just detonated. Around midnight, I finally checked my phone. The notification count made my stomach drop. The post had garnered hundreds of likes and dozens of comments in just 2 hours. Friends from high school and college expressed shock and support. Coworkers I had not realized followed me sent private messages of encouragement. Even acquaintances I barely knew chimed in with their own stories of family favoritism. Then my phone rang. Brittany's name flashed on the screen. "What did you do?" she asked without preamble, her voice simultaneously panicked and impressed. "I told the truth," I replied simply. "Your mother is having a complete meltdown," Brittany informed me. "She called my mom in tears, saying you are trying to humiliate the family." "I just posted photos of how they celebrated each of our birthdays," I said. "If those photos are humiliating, maybe they should ask themselves why. Your father is threatening to call the restaurant and complain that they gave you a substandard dessert, as if that is the actual problem here." Despite everything, I found myself laughing at the absurdity. Of course he would find a way to blame anyone but himself. "Miranda is in hysterics," Brittany continued. "She keeps saying you are trying to ruin her happiness and make people hate her." The familiar guilt began to creep in, but I pushed it away. I did not say anything negative about Miranda. This is about our parents and how they have treated us differently our entire lives. "I know that," Brittany assured me. "And for what it is worth, I think you are completely right. This has been going on forever, and they have always gaslit you when you tried to address it privately." Her validation meant more than all the supportive comments from acquaintances. Brittany had witnessed the pattern firsthand throughout our lives. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Do you need me to come over?" "I am at Natalie's. I will be fine." After we hung up, the texts started pouring in from family members. My mother's message was predictably accusatory. "How could you embarrass us like this? We raised you better. than to air family business on social media. My father was more direct. Take down that post immediately. This is completely inappropriate and immature. Miranda sent a string of tearful messages. Everyone is going to hate me now because of you. Is that what you wanted? To make me look bad and turn people against me? I silenced my phone and handed it to Natalie. I cannot deal with this tonight. You do not have to, she assured me. You have said what needed to be said. They can sit with their discomfort for once, instead of you sitting with yours. The next morning, I woke to dozens more notifications. The post had been shared widely, resonating with many who had experienced similar dynamics in their families. Among the messages was a surprising one from Uncle Philip. I have seen this happening since you were both little girls. Your parents have always played favorites, and it was wrong then and is wrong now. If they are upset about the post, it is because they know it shows the truth they have never wanted to face. His message brought fresh tears to my eyes. Having another family member acknowledge the reality I had lived with for decades felt powerfully validating. Natalie made breakfast while I finally read through all the messages. There were angry texts from extended family members accusing me of being selfish and attention-seeking. There were equally passionate messages of support from friends and even distant relatives who had noticed the disparity in treatment over the years. What now? Natalie asked as she placed a plate of scrambled eggs in front of me. I honestly do not know, I admitted. I never thought beyond posting the truth. They are probably expecting you to apologize and take down the post, she observed. I am not doing either of those things, I replied with newfound resolve. I have spent my entire life apologizing for taking up space, for having needs, for expecting basic consideration. By afternoon, Brittany called again to report that my parents were organizing a family meeting for the following evening. They are calling it an intervention, she said, unable to keep the incredulity from her voice. As if you are the one with the problem. Do they expect me to attend this intervention about myself? I asked, already knowing the answer. Apparently, your mother said, and I quote, Melinda needs to understand the damage she has done to this family with her public tantrum. I closed my eyes, feeling a mixture of dread and determination. Will you be there? Absolutely, Brittany replied without hesitation. Someone needs to be in your corner. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long moment, contemplating what awaited me at this family gathering. The thought of facing everyone's judgment and anger was terrifying, but for the first time in my life, I felt certain I was doing the right thing by standing up for myself. The post had cracked open a lifetime of suppressed truth. There was no going back to pretending everything was fine, to accepting scraps of attention while Miranda received feasts of adoration. Whatever happened next, I would face it with the knowledge that I deserved better than what my family had given me. The following evening, I drove to my parents' suburban home with a strange sense of calm. The initial anxiety had given way to a steady resolve. For 31 years, I had allowed my family to dictate the terms of our relationship. Tonight, that would change. I parked behind Brittany's car and took a deep breath before walking to the front door. Inside, voices were already raised in discussion. Rather than ringing the bell, I used my key and entered quietly. The living room had been arranged like a tribunal. My parents occupied the love seat, with Miranda beside them in an armchair. Aunt Clara sat primly on an ottoman, while Uncle Philip stood near the fireplace. Brittany had positioned herself slightly apart from the others, clearly establishing her neutrality or perhaps her allegiance to me. Conversations ceased abruptly when I appeared in the doorway. My mother's face was blotchy from crying, while my father wore the stern expression he reserved for serious displeasure. Miranda refused to meet my eyes. Melinda, my father said, his voice deliberately measured. Thank you for coming. I took the single chair left open, directly across from my parents. The symbolism of the arrangement was not lost on me. The family united against the troublemaker. We need to discuss your behavior, my mother began without preamble. That social media post was completely inappropriate and hurtful. I remained silent, watching her closely. The things you implied about this family, about how we treat you and your sister, she continued, her voice cracking. "How could you embarrass us like that?" When I still did not respond, my father took over. "We have always given you everything you needed. We supported your education, helped with the down payment on your condo, celebrated your achievements. Did you, though?" I finally asked, my voice calmer than I expected. "Can you name the last achievement of mine that you celebrated?" The question hung in the air. My father frowned, clearly searching his memory. "That is not the point," my mother interjected. "The point is that you publicly humiliated your family because of a birthday party." "It was not about a birthday party," I replied. "The birthday was just the final example of a pattern that has existed my entire life." Aunt Clara huffed dismissively. "Every child thinks they were treated unfairly compared to their siblings. It is hardly reason to air family business on Instagram." "With all due respect, Aunt Clara, you have no idea what you are talking about," I said, surprised by my own directness. "This is not about normal sibling rivalry." I turned back to my parents. "When I was 9, I won the school spelling bee. You both missed it because Miranda had a dance lesson. When she performed in her first recital that same year, you brought flowers and took the entire family out for dinner afterward." My mother opened her mouth to object, but I continued. "When I graduated with honors from Northwestern, you left immediately after the ceremony to help Miranda move into her new apartment. When she graduated with a basic degree 3 years later, you threw a party for 50 people. I reached for my phone and pulled up a list I had prepared. Last month, I was promoted to senior director after 5 years of hard work. Your response was, 'Good job,' before immediately changing the subject to Miranda's dating life. 2 weeks later, Miranda was promoted to junior manager after less than 2 years at her company, and you sent flowers to her office, took her to dinner at Gibson's, and posted congratulations on Facebook." With each example, my parents grew more uncomfortable. Miranda stared at the floor, while Uncle Philip nodded slightly in confirmation. "We love both our daughters equally," my mother insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. "You may love us equally in theory," I acknowledged, "but you have never treated us equally in practice." "This is ridiculous," my father interjected. "You cannot possibly keep score of every interaction over 30 years. "I did not have to," I replied. "The pattern was so consistent that anyone paying attention could see it." Brittany spoke up from her position by the window. "She is right, Aunt Judith. The difference in how you treat them has been obvious to everyone in the family for years." My mother turned to her, shocked. "That is simply not true." "It is," Uncle Philip confirmed, surprising everyone. "I have watched you dote on Miranda and take Melinda for granted since they were little girls. I always assumed you would eventually realize what you were doing, but you never did. So now everyone is ganging up on us?" my father demanded, his face reddening. "No one is ganging up on anyone," I said firmly. "But I am no longer willing to pretend this treatment is normal or acceptable." Miranda finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. "So, this is all my fault? You hate me because Mom and Dad give me nice things?" "This has nothing to do with you, Miranda," I assured her. "I do not resent you for accepting their love and attention. I resent them for making me feel invisible and unworthy of the same consideration." "We never meant to make you feel that way," my mother said, her defiance giving way to genuine distress. "Your intentions do not change the impact of your actions," I replied. "For 31 years, you have consistently prioritized Miranda's needs, wants, and achievements over mine. You have gaslit me when I tried to address it privately. You have made me feel like I was crazy or oversensitive for noticing the disparity." The room fell silent as the weight of my words settled over everyone. My father stared at his hands, while my mother dabbed at fresh tears. "What exactly do you want from us, Melinda?" my father finally asked. "I want you to acknowledge the pattern," I replied. "I want you to stop denying reality and gaslighting me when I point out the unequal treatment. I want to be valued and celebrated the same way you value and celebrate Miranda." Another silence followed, this one less hostile and more reflective. "I had no idea you felt this way," Miranda said quietly. I knew they made a bigger deal about my stuff, but I did not realize how much it hurt you. Her acknowledgement, however tentative, felt like the first crack in the family facade. Maybe we have been a bit excessive with Miranda, my mother admitted reluctantly. She always seemed to need more encouragement and support. And I did not? I asked. Just because I found ways to succeed without your constant validation does not mean I did not want or deserve it. My father cleared his throat. I suppose when I think about it, we may have developed some patterns in how we respond to each of you. This halting acknowledgement, after decades of denial, nearly took my breath away. I think we should consider family therapy, Uncle Philip suggested. This dynamic did not develop overnight, and it will not be resolved in one conversation. To my surprise, my father nodded slowly. That might be a good idea. In the meantime, I said, I need some boundaries. I need you to stop dismissing my feelings and experiences. I need you to make an effort to acknowledge my achievements with the same enthusiasm you show for Miranda's. And I need you to understand that the relationship we have moving forward will be determined by your willingness to address this pattern. My mother looked stricken. Are you saying you will cut us off if we do not do what you want? I am saying I will no longer accept being treated as an afterthought, I clarified. The choice about whether to change that dynamic is yours. The conversation continued for hours, cycling through denial, anger, bargaining, and eventually toward tentative understanding. Aunt Clara remained skeptical, while Brittany and Uncle Philip provided crucial validation of my experiences. Miranda oscillated between defensive and genuinely contrite as she began to recognize her role in the family dynamic. By the time I left that night, exhausted but unburdened, we had agreed to begin family counseling sessions. My parents had acknowledged, however reluctantly, that their treatment of their daughters had been unequal. It was a small victory, but a significant one after decades of gaslighting and denial. As Brittany walked me to my car, she squeezed my arm supportively. I am proud of you, she said simply. Thank you for being there, I replied. I could not have done this without knowing someone else saw the truth. Driving home in the quiet darkness, I felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and liberation. For the first time in my life, I had refused to accept the role assigned to me by my family. Whatever happened next, I would never again shrink myself to accommodate their narrative. 6 months after the confrontation that changed everything, I sat in the waiting room of Dr. Linwood's office, flipping through a magazine without really seeing the pages. Family therapy had become a twice-monthly fixture in our lives, sometimes productive, often painful, but consistently necessary. The door opened, and my mother emerged, looking drained but determined. We had started alternating individual sessions with group therapy, allowing each family member space to process their own role in our dysfunction. Ready for coffee? She asked, her voice gentler than it had been for most of my life. Sure, I agreed, gathering my things. We walked in comfortable silence to the cafe around the corner, a neutral territory that had become our ritual after therapy. My mother ordered for both of us, remembering exactly how I took my latte, a small but meaningful indication of her efforts to truly see me. Dr. Linwood suggested I bring some old photo albums next time, she said as we settled at a corner table. She wants to discuss how we documented your childhoods differently. I nodded, sipping my coffee. That could be illuminating. The first few therapy sessions had been fraught with denial and defensiveness. My father had stormed out of our second appointment when the therapist gently pointed out a pattern in how he spoke about his daughters. My mother had dissolved into tears during the third session, caught between guilt and the desire to justify decades of behavior. Miranda had perhaps the most complex journey. Recognizing her unwitting role in the family dynamic had been devastating for her. I never asked to be the favorite, she had sobbed during one particularly intense session. I just accepted what they gave me. You did not create this situation, I had assured her. You were a child being treated preferentially by your parents. That was not your responsibility to fix. Gradually, painfully, we had begun establishing new patterns of interaction. My parents made conscious efforts to show interest in my life and achievements. They called regularly, not just when they needed something or when Miranda had news to share. My father had attended a client presentation I gave, sitting proudly in the audience and taking me to lunch afterward. Small steps, but meaningful ones. "We are planning your birthday next month," my mother said now, interrupting my thoughts. "I know it is still several weeks away, but we wanted to do something special." The irony of advance planning for my birthday, when 6 months ago they had barely remembered it, was not lost on either of us. "Nothing extravagant," I cautioned. "This is not about matching Miranda's party. It is about being thoughtful and consistent." My mother nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. "It was never about the money or the grandness of the gestures, was it?" "No," I confirmed. "It was about feeling valued and considered, about having my existence acknowledged with the same enthusiasm you showed for Miranda." These moments of realization had become more frequent as therapy progressed. Layer by layer, we were unpacking decades of entrenched patterns and unconscious biases. Outside our family, other aspects of my life had flourished in unexpected ways. Standing up to my parents had catalyzed a new confidence that permeated every area of my life. I spoke more assertively in meetings at work. I established clearer boundaries in friendships. I even started dating with a healthier sense of what I deserved from a partner. Most surprisingly, I had reconnected with Marcus, the photographer from Miranda's party. We had bumped into each other at a marketing event where he was shooting, and he had immediately apologized for mistaking me for staff at the birthday. "I still feel terrible about that," he admitted over coffee. "It was an easy assumption to make," I assured him. "I was setting up while everyone else was preparing to celebrate." What began as an apology coffee evolved into dinner, then regular dates. Unlike previous relationships where I had accepted neglect as familiar and comfortable, with Marcus, I established clear expectations from the beginning. He responded with consistent attentiveness and genuine interest in my thoughts and experiences. For her part, Miranda had begun the difficult work of examining her own role in our family system. Our relationship, previously defined by competition and resentment, slowly evolved into something more authentic. "I never realized how much Mom and Dad shaped how we saw each other," she confessed, during a sister lunch we had instituted as part of our healing process. "I always thought you resented me for being more social or outgoing, not because they treated us so differently." "I never resented who you are," I explained. "I resented that they seemed to value those qualities so much more than anything about me." These conversations, awkward and uncomfortable at first, gradually became easier as we developed a new language for discussing our shared history and current reality. The social media post that had catalyzed our family reckoning had another unexpected consequence. It connected me with dozens of other people who had experienced similar family dynamics. What began as comments and private messages evolved into a small online support group for adult children of parental favoritism. "Your post gave me the courage to finally confront my own family," one participant shared during a video call. "After 37 years of being the forgotten son, I finally said enough." This community of understanding had become an important part of my healing process, providing validation and perspective when family therapy became particularly challenging. As I finished my coffee with my mother, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I am sorry it took something so public and dramatic for us to hear you," she said, her eyes meeting mine directly. "I wish we had listened all those times you tried to tell us more quietly." "I wish that too," I admitted. "But I am grateful we are listening to each other now." We were not a healed family yet. There were still difficult moments, old patterns that emerged under stress, hurt feelings that surfaced unexpectedly. But we were a family in the process of healing, committed to creating a new dynamic based on equal consideration and respect. My 32nd birthday approached, with none of the dread that had accompanied birthdays past. Whatever celebration my family planned, I knew it would reflect a new awareness and intention. The healing was not in the grandness of the gesture, but in the recognition behind it. The acknowledgement that I deserved to be celebrated with the same enthusiasm they had always shown for Miranda. Standing up for myself had been terrifying, but necessary. The photo I had posted, the truth I had spoken, The boundaries I had established had created space for authentic relationship where before there had only been roles to play and expectations to fulfill. As I walked my mother to her car, I felt a profound gratitude for the painful journey we had undertaken together. Speaking truth had cost me temporary peace, but had given me something far more valuable: the chance for genuine connection with my family, based not on pretense, but on honest recognition of our shared humanity, our mistakes, and our capacity for growth. The message I would share with anyone facing similar family dynamics was simple: your reality matters. Your feelings are valid. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and your family is to refuse to participate in a dynamic that diminishes your worth. If my story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear they deserve equal love and consideration. Have you ever had to stand up to family dynamics that were hurting you? Leave a comment below. Do not forget to like and subscribe if you found value in my journey from invisibility to being truly seen. Thank you for witnessing my story. And remember, sometimes the most courageous act of love is speaking your truth, even when those who should hear it most are the least prepared to listen.